Hello and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Friday, June 8th, 2018, and this is episode 63. My name is Carol and I am known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry. The show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog and also in the episode thread in the Ravelry group. If you'd like to get in touch, you can do so via private message on Ravelry or by leaving me a comment in the episode thread there or by leaving me a comment on YouTube, and I'll try and respond as quickly as I can. Thanks so much to all of you who did reach out this past week with your kind messages and comments. They always mean a lot to me. It's nice to hear from you. So welcome everybody. It is a rainy late Friday afternoon here in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada. And since it's 5 o'clock somewhere, meaning here, I am not drinking tea today. I'm indulging in some lovely rosé from Serendipity Winery in Naramata, that is in Naramata, BC. We visited there last summer, and so I decided I'm not drinking alone if you're all there with me, right? I am alone in the house for now, temporarily at least, and I'm kind of enjoying the quiet. My husband's gone away for the weekend. He is on an annual golf trip that he does with some friends, but also, I guess, new friends. He got into this trip via my brother-in-law, Stan, and it had originally started through Stan's co-workers, but there's been a shift of people over the years. But Cameron's gone, I think this is probably his 7th or 8th year. He always looks forward to it, and I always kind of look forward to a weekend off, because I feel if he's off and away, then I can kind of take it easy too. And other than stopping by briefly this morning, our friend who's working on the deck wasn't here today. So I've really enjoyed a nice, lazy, cozy Friday. I sat and knit most of the day and had a little nap this afternoon. Anyway, I just kind of decided, more or less on the spur of the moment, that I would podcast this evening. So here we are. I haven't done any show notes, but I have a whole lot of stuff to talk about. I've got lots of things spread out all over me here. So get comfortable. I think it might be a long one. Maybe grab yourself some an adult beverage if it is that an appropriate time. Wherever you are by the time you see this. I'm sure it won't be up until Saturday. But cheers. Let's get going. That's my first sip, and it's just as nice as I remember it being. So let's start off with something you've already seen before, which are the socks I'm knitting for my brother-in-law, Ed. Let's see, there they are. You can see they have grown a little bit since last week. I think I now have 3 pattern repeats for the leg, and I'm going to do one more. That's a 16 row pattern. So let's just bring this in a little bit closer. Hopefully you can see the really cool textured stitch pattern, kind of a diamond pattern. The light is kind of blowing it out. It's a richer orangey color than it's showing up here. Because it's so dark and rainy out there, I've got my overhead light on. I've got a light on back here too, plus the window. So I feel like things are maybe a little paler than they should be. I forgot to bring in the pattern page, but they are the Athos socks by Kiowa Coffee, and I am knitting them out of this tonal orangey yarn from Ancient Arts. It's their 3-ply, no, I don't know about 3-ply, it's their fingering sock. The colorway is Orange Tabby, and it's from their Meow collection, and a portion of the profits go to animal charities. So yeah, those are coming along pretty well. I'll be honest, they're not my favorite thing to work on. I'm got lots of other things going on that I'm enjoying more, but I do want to try and finish them by the end of the month because my sister, my brother-in-law's wife, will be back in BC, and I'd like to have them ready to send back home with her. So I sort of every so often sit down and make myself do a pattern repeat. So one more, it's like 16 more rows on each, and then it's time for the heel. And then things tend to go a little bit faster once you hit the foot because half of it's in stockinette. So I'm looking forward to kind of making that turn. Oh, that is so good. I wish you could taste it. Recently, I guess 2 or 3 years ago, I've always been a white wine drinker. Tried lots of reds, don't really like most of them. And then a few years ago, tried some rosé and have come to like them more and more all the time, and my husband and I are both finding ourselves drinking them more. So when you get a good one, oh, so yummy. The next project I will show you. This is the latest pattern from the Handmade Sock Society by Helen Stewart. I'm afraid that's not a great picture of it, but once I show you the pattern, basically it's a plain vanilla sock with some patterning along either the outside of the left sock or the outside of the right sock. They're mirror images of each other. Other than that, it's a very plain sock. These are called, I've never heard of this flower. Astrantia, I'm going to guess it's how it's said, Astrantia socks. Not familiar with that plant. I looked it up on the internet and found pictures. If I've seen it, I don't remember it. But I dug through my stash and I found this actually really deep stash that kind of matches my top. This is Dream in Color Smooshy in the Punky Fuchsia colorway. And I've had it for a long time. I had originally bought it to do a different pair of socks, and I never got around to them. So this one seemed like a good one. I liked it because it had a lot of tonality in it, so knitting it as a more or less plain vanilla sock wasn't going to be too boring. And it kind of matched up with at least one of the colors that this Astrantia, is that what it right? Anyway, whatever that flower is called, some of them are in a similar color. So I've got the patterning all done now on this sock. So you start off with this really cool, I'll just see if I'll bring it in and see if you can see. See the baubles here? You do the baubles at the top of the ribbing, and then you do these 3 flower motifs that run down. This is the right sock, so it'll run down the outside of my right foot. And now it's, like I said, it's just stockinette from here with a short row heel. So I'll be able to knit on these whenever, wherever for a while. So now that I've got the patterning done. So I am loving that this pattern is so simple. It was fun to start and have a little bit of interest to start, and now I love that it's just a plain stockinette sock from here on out, because I do have other projects that I need to concentrate on, and this is just one that I will just work on just for fun whenever I can. So looking forward to getting back to these. I did this so much, I think within a day or two, and haven't touched them since, but I will be getting back to them soon. I needed, before I'd gotten to that point, I needed a plain stockinette project for the car. I'll tell you about it in a bit, but we had an impromptu road trip this weekend. Well, why don't I tell you about it now? So, first of all, can I just say how much I really love my husband? He is a very thoughtful and kind man, and fun and funny, and really just, he's very good to me. So, as I mentioned last podcast, Sunday was the 3rd anniversary of my dad's passing away. He died very suddenly and unexpectedly, so it was quite a shock for all of us. So, Saturday evening, we were sitting out on the deck and talking about him, and I said, you know, just this time 3 years ago, you know, my mom and dad and the rest of us had no idea that just in just a few hours how much our lives would be changed. And my husband said, you know what we should do? We should drive up tomorrow and take your mom out for lunch. Now, it's about a 3, with good traffic and not really stopping, it's about 3 hours and 15-minute drive to her place from here by highway. And I said, oh, yeah, right. And he's like, no, I mean it. You should phone her. And I said, I'm not going to, this is crazy. He's like, no. And he grabbed the phone and he passed it to me and he said, tell her we're coming up for lunch. By this time, it was about 9:30 or 9:45. And yes, maybe a glass or 2 of wine was involved. But we weren't like crazy inebriated or anything. So I called her, and just before I dialed, my husband said, you know, we should get in touch with all your sisters and see if they want to come too. And I said, we can't start phoning people at 10 o'clock at night. They're not going to be in bed. It's Saturday night. So while I'm talking to my mom, he's in contact with the 3 of my sisters that live locally. 2 are unavailable, but to go. But one, my sister Anna Marie and her husband Doug said, "Yeah, let's go do that." So they got here at 9 o'clock Sunday morning, and we drove up and picked up my mom. We went to the cemetery and then went out for lunch, and then we went out to the cabins for a little while. My mom took full advantage of 2 of her sons-in-law being there and put them to work doing a little job out at the cabin. It was kind of a rainy day that day too. It poured rain while we were having lunch, but it was dry at the cabin until just before we left. So kind of an unexpected, crazy day, long day, a lot of driving. Glad I didn't actually have to drive, but it was really nice. It was a nice way to spend it, and I think my mom appreciated having at least a couple of her girls there with her on what could have been a difficult day on her own. So that is all to say that Sunday morning I got up and I said, well, I need some knitting for the car. So I need to find some sock yarn and get it ready to cast on. So I dug around and I found this Regia. It's a Colorito color. And its color name is Gentian, and it's 4458 is the number. So it kind of, as you can see, it's sort of stripy, but also kind of mottled. So the trick was finding this right spot for where the pattern began, because I divided it into 2 skeins, and I literally had yarn all over the place. I was literally just finished winding the second ball up when my sister and her husband pulled up in front of our house. So it was perfect. So I cast on in the car and knit most of the way there and back. So I got that far. Got the ribbing and then the first bit of stockinette. So again, haven't touched these since, but it's good. It's always good to have a pair of stockinette socks on the go, because you never know when you might decide to jump in the car and drive somewhere in 3 hours or so to go have lunch with somebody and turn around and come back home again. Okay, So I still have more projects. I have actually three more projects to show you. 2 knitting and 1 sewing. The one I've been working on the most this week is the Maytham shawl by Helen Stewart. And that's the first pattern in the Shawl Society 3, which is inspired by the book The Secret Garden. So this shawl is inspired by the estate in which the story takes place, thus the architectural lace detail there on that band. So I'm now 70% finished. As I say, I've been working on it a lot. I am using for all three, actually it's a 2-color shawl, but I didn't have any. You need 2 skeins of one color and 1 skein of another, and I really didn't have anything suitable in my stash, and I really didn't want to buy new yarn. So I'm actually using 3 different colorways of Sweet Georgia Tough Love Sock. So the variegated color is Anthem, the gray is London Fog, and then this dark purple is Ultraviolet. So I'll show you what I've got done so far. I'm now up to 525 stitches. It's a half pie shawl, so it's going to be difficult to show you because it's all bunched up on the needles, but I'll do the best I can. So I've got this variegated beginning, and then I did the next part, this reverse stockinette with twisted stitches. I did that in the ultraviolet. Switched back, and I'm just going to spread out this section so you can see. I switched back to the Anthem variegated, and then I did that whole panel in the gray or the London Fog. And then I've switched back briefly to the variegated, and there's another section of reverse stockinette with twisted stitches. Let's see if that shows up. And then, so that's down here. So I did the first little bit of the garter stitch in the variegated, and then I'm doing this band of twisted stitches in the dark purple. Then I'm going to switch back briefly to the Anthem with the variegated, and my plan is to do the border in the ultraviolet or the dark purple. I don't think I would have enough of the Anthem colorway to do the border, but I am going to weigh the yarn when I get there and figure out what percentage of the shawl. If I have enough, I may decide just to carry on with the variegated for the border, but I have a feeling I won't have enough. And I think once it's all blocked out, I think the striping will actually look really, really nice. So, been enjoying this. There's a lot of garter stitch, kind of broken up with this lace panel, and then the textured sections. And so, it's been a good mix of sort of mindless knitting sometimes, and other times something you have to think about a little more. So yeah, I like how it's coming along so far. Already in my mind, I want to knit another half pie shawl. I really love this shape of shawl. I really enjoy knitting it. And yeah, I keep thinking, oh, I want to do another one. Not necessarily this pattern, but I still have the Surprise Party shawl by Helen Stewart that I knit part of and ended up taking apart because I didn't like it. So I'm always in the back of my mind thinking I should reknit that. shawl with a different yarn choice, so maybe that'll be the next one. But there's more shawls coming in this collection. I have a feeling that's going to be put aside for a while. Just going to find a place to put this down. And my final knitting project hasn't changed a lot since I showed it to you last week, but I'm continuing to work on the sleeves of my Birkin by Caitlin Hunter. So it has grown a little bit. You can see, I think last week, I just had about that much done. So I've done a few more inches on each sleeve. And the main yarn that I'm using is Blacker Swan 4-ply, and the main color is Stone, and I'm happy to report this is the extra skein that I ordered. It arrived yesterday, and so I should have enough, I believe, to do long sleeves on the sweater, which is what I really wanted at the outset. So I was really, really happy to receive this skein because it was the last skein they had available on the website. So yay. I've also been doing some sewing this week. Just put this out of the way. So I believe I showed this panel to you last week. It's a baby quilt that I am making for my friend's daughter who's having a baby coming up beginning of July. And so I've started working on this. It's you can see it says Jungle, J-U-N. Can't get it all on top. G-L-E. And then there's this. I'm assuming that's in screen. I can't see the lion there. Hopefully you can see that. So I've quilted most of it. What I did is I put a piece of batting in between, and I bought the matching fabric for backing. And so I then pinned around the outsides, and I stitched the inside of the border, and I basted the outside of the border, and I put quilting pins, safety pins, on all the different animals and letters, and now I am quilting around all of them. Just a simple machine stitch. See if there's one I can. Here's the turtle that might show up. So I'm just quilting around the basic outline of all of those things. There's the leaf I quilted around, and I went down the center. And then there are some leaves on the bottom. I've left the pins in, but so far all I've done is quilted a line or sewed a line just along the stems, and I haven't decided if I'm going to try and quilt around those leaves or if I'm just going to leave them just with the stitch, because certainly the stem stitches will hold the fabrics together in that area. There's a good look at the, oops, there's a good look at the lion. I think he's so cute. And I love the snake. Let's see. Where'd he go? Yeah, I just think it's so cute. So I've got that probably 3/4 or more quilted, and then I've got this fabric that I am going to use for binding. Just do a narrow binding around the outside. Because of how the fabric's printed and how it was cut, I'm not going to be able to get this dark line showing because my fabric's cut right along this dark line. But I figured that would be a good outside color that would pick up these shades. Maybe you can see that better if I bring it in closer. The fabric actually has a bit of a colors blowing out a bit, has a bit of a darker, almost looks like it's woven printed on there. Anyway, so yeah, so that was good. I did all of that yesterday, all in one day, so it's not a laborious project. It'll be done well in time for when the baby's born. I won't see my friend. I'll see her near the end of June, so I shouldn't have any trouble finishing it by then. Then I did, as I said, I received the skein of the Blacker Swan for my Birkin, and I told you last week that I'd also ordered some other yarn that I couldn't remember what it was called, but it's the Samite, also, from Blacker. This is, the color is Sunless Hours. Don't you love the name? Sunless Hours. And it's this lovely kind of medium gray. I'm not sure if the light shows off. It's got a bit of a sheen to it because there is silk in this yarn. It's a Samite. It says wool silk blend. So it doesn't actually say on here. It's 3-ply. Oh, 20% silk, 80% new wool, pure new wool. And I've been thinking about buying this for a while. I've placed several orders with Blacker yarns over the last year or two, I guess. And it always just seems like an extravagance because I'm usually I have always been purchasing for a particular project. But this time, because I was only ordering the one skein of yarn, it would have been crazy not to put more into my order because to make the shipping costs more justified. And so what I plan to make is this shawl, and again, sorry, not a very good copy. It's called the Belvrade Hat, and it was designed for this yarn. Can't see it very well there. This is a version with several colors. You can see it's kind of a Shetland inspired feather and fan type of pattern on it. I am really tempted, now that I've shown you, I'm really tempted to cast it on right away. Which is probably crazy because I have my drawing board shawl on the go and I have been working on Maytham, but I sort of look at this weekend as kind of an indulgent weekend, and I only want to knit things I really want to knit, so I may just skein this up and maybe even tonight cast it on and start it just to get a taste. So you might see it next week. Started to see it in knitted form. We'll see if my conscience gets the better of me. I mean, it's a hobby. I can do what I want, right? But I feel like, I should work on Ed's socks. Or I should, really try and finish the Maytham shawl or the drawing board shawl before I cast on another one. But who knows? We'll see. I have done some reading this week. I finished Betsy and Tacy Go Over the Big Hill by Maud Hart Lovelace and began the next book in the series, Betsy and Tacy Go Downtown. And if you are new, I am going to a Betsy Tacy convention in Minneapolis, Minnesota this summer with my sister. We read these books as children and also as young adults and also as adults. I forgot to mention these books are, I'm just trying to think the anniversary. When we grew up, we did not have books that looked like this. They were reprinted in, let me see if I can find the information quickly. Originally, this one was printed in 1942, was reprinted in 2000. And that would have been as part of, I'm trying to think what anniversary, or if that's what it was, some sort of anniversary for these books being reprinted. I can't find that easily. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, what's really neat is that they have forwards by various young adult or children's authors. So the forward on this one's written by Judy Blume, and actually on the back there's a what do you call it? endorsement. I don't think that's quite the right word, but by Bette Midler. So she said, I read every one of these Betsy Tacy Tibb books twice. I loved them as a child, as a young adult, and now reading them with my daughter as a mother. What a wonderful world it was. And as I also explained, the books, as the children get older, the series starts when they're 5, and the series ends with Betsy's wedding and her first year of married life. And so the books are similar to Harry Potter in that they get more complex and have more complex characters, plots, writing styles as the books go on. So when I opened up this one, I realized, okay, this is where the transition starts. So I'll read the first few sentences of Betsy and Tacy go over the big hill, and I think you'll grasp it. So the first chapter's getting to be 10. And you can see the illustrations are by Lois Lenski. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with her books and illustrations. So the first paragraph in this one says, Betsy, Tacy, and Tibb were 9 years old, and they were very anxious to be 10. You have 2 numbers in your age when you are 10. It's the beginning of growing up, Betsy would say. Then the 3 of them felt solemn and important and pleased. They could hardly wait for their birthdays. So that's how that one opens. And immediately when you start to read this, you realize it's gone another step in the maturity level. So this one starts out, it's called The Maple Tree. You can see it's a much longer, more sophisticated paragraphs, etc. Betsy was sitting in the backyard maple, high amongst spreading branches that were clothed in rich green, except at their tips where they wore the first gold of September. 3 branches forked to make a seat, one of them even providing a prop for her back. To her right, within easy reach, was another smaller crotch into which a cigar box had been nailed. This was closed and showed on the cover a plump, coquettish lady wearing a Spanish shawl. So you know that all of a sudden your writing has become more sophisticated, grown up. That's what I love about them, that children can start reading them as children and then kind of grow up with them. But they're as equally as enjoyable for young adults or even adults who want to relive their young adult fiction. I have lots and lots of books I had as a teenager, and I still bring them out and read them, like All of a Kind Family and Anne of Green Gables or Little House on the Prairie. Those are really well-known ones. I'm trying to think of some others that are just escaping me, but I still enjoy that sort of young adult fiction. I think it's sort of timeless. So that's what I've been up to. So I've already told you about our impromptu road trip. The rest of the week's been pretty uneventful. Our next step on our deck, I think when I talked to you last week, I was waiting for a call from the electrician, who never did call on Saturday. But he did come over on Monday at the same time as our friend the carpenter was here. So they discussed the lighting situation, an electric situation. And so our friend Randy has gone ahead and put some of the things in place, and then the electrician's going to come in and hook everything up, hopefully next week. And then once the electricity's all in place, then the decking itself can go on, and we'll have an actual surface to our deck, other than the 2 areas where I think there's 4x8 sheets of plywood nailed down just so we can get around. For instance, when we open up our back door, we don't step down into a hole. We actually have some plywood there, and it meets up with the bottom of our back stairs. So yeah, that's all there is to all the progress there is there. I'm hoping to have more to talk about next time I podcast. I felt really good this week. I got out, I forget if it was Monday or Tuesday, and I spent a good few hours in the garden, thoroughly weeding everything, trimming things back, giving everything a really good tidy up. And then the next day I went to the garden center and picked up some bedding plants to fill in the holes. So of course they're not doing much yet because they've only been there for a few days, but it's good. They were getting a nice nice soaking today, and we're supposed to get more rain this weekend. So they're off to a cool, wet start, which is probably a good thing. Hopefully they'll get their roots kind of established before we get back to the hot sun. So I guess that's about it. That's my week. So I don't really know, other than really just had kind of taking it easy this weekend. I don't have any real plans. I do have to run a couple of errands tomorrow, but they shouldn't take too long. And the rest of that time I just plan to have a bit of a holiday myself, and housework can wait till next week. It's not going anywhere, so why not? So I hope you have a lovely weekend too, and a good week ahead. Thanks as always for joining me, listening to me babble on. And as I say, not letting me drink alone. There's a gas station and store that we sometimes stop in. It's on the way home from my mom's. And when you go use the restrooms, the walls in this hallway are all covered with all these funny signs. And one of them said something like that if the cat's there, you're not drinking alone. So I'm just looking at it like you're all here with me. Cheers to you. Have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Hi again. I'm just popping back in briefly to say a couple things. So first off, I meant to mention that the rivers have gone down quite significantly after a period of cool weather. So 2 weeks ago when we went up to the cabin, I showed you this picture of where there normally is a very large rock sticking out of the water, and it was not visible 2 weeks ago, but you can see from this photo that the water has gone down quite a bit. The creek that runs through our property has also gone down significantly. So that's good. The flooding danger is over for a lot of people. The second thing is my son just came in briefly after work, and he had a home inspection done on the place that he is wanting to buy. He had that done today. Other than a few minor repairs, everything's checked out, so he's just left again to go sign papers. All the subjects will now come off, and he will be the proud owner of a new condo. Possession date as it stands is September 1st. I'm not sure if that'll change. There's a tenant in there now that has to be given 2 months notice, and so he's not sure if she moves out before September 1st, if he can get in early, move up the closing date. But in any case, for sure, by September 1st, he will be in a place of his own. So he's very excited, obviously, about that. When he comes back, we're going to get Indian food for dinner and celebrate. So again, thanks for watching. Have yourselves a great week, and I'll see you soon. Bye.